Hasn't been a bad day or anything. Woke up to tons of rain. Looked all moody out the sky, super dark clouds. And I'm like, which is good. We needed the rain, and my potatoes needed it, and some of the plants I planted needed it. The forest needed it. River needed it. We needed rain. um, Let me turn my live chat on. I never forget to, but I feel like I'm always about to forget to. And we'll start making some tea. And I thought today we'd have a little get to know me Q&A to keep my brain occupied. So today I think I'm going to do this white peony, the Bai Mao Dan from Dihong. Probably said all that wrong. But it's a white peony from YunnanSourcing.com. And these places pay me to drink their tea. But I like to talk about them. It's just something that I'm enjoying, showing people what I'm doing. If I can get her open. It's a serious bag. I guess that's better than it not being sealed. There we go. Maybe there we go. Made it in. Ooh, she looks nice. One of the ways, and people will freak out about this, a lot of people, they open it and they see what they think is like mold or fuzzy or something on the side of the bag, especially if they're using these Mylar bags, right? Like you can see that right there. Whoop, right here. Right, it's on my finger. That is actually a sign of really high quality tea, because tea has little fuzzy hairs on her, kind of, right? And so when it hasn't been overly handled, like hyper processed, like most of the teas that people get in the US that are Camellia sinensis, there will be little hairs. And it's actually a sign of high quality tea. So white peony is like white tea, except for she's been allowed to like grow a little longer, right? So there can be kind of like a mix of things. And it gives a nice flavor. I like white peony. She's typically pretty affordable. She's often like nice and like floral and a nice white tea. I don't think that will fit in there. And you'll get like all different like colorings within the same tea. Morning everybody. Morning everybody rolling in. Gonna have some tea. Let's do 170. Because that's about what I normally use for white tea. So I might have put too much in there. Might have put too much in there. So today I thought we'd do a little bit of a like ask me anything about myself. Usually I do the like what's an assumption thing about me, but today I'll open it up to whatever anybody wants to ask me about myself. As a reminder, the health Q&A is on Friday. Right, and it's not that I don't answer stuff like that on occasion. I try to put a boundary with myself, you know. And I'm fucking yogurt high again. There's no other way to put it. What's crazy though is this morning as I drank a little bit of the I did a second ferment kefir with like dates and vanilla, and I only drank a little bit of that this morning, and the feeling actually hit me before I drank the El Ruda rice smoothie, although it definitely hit me harder after the El Ruda rice smoothie. But a lot of it is, I believe, it's not just like taking down like your nervous system. It's like helping it like regulate itself. But I also believe that it has something to do with like pushing back like the endotoxin load in your body, right? And so because I've had this feeling from antibiotics before too. Right, and my body is particularly sensitive to things and changes. I do not drink kombucha. I don't particularly like kombucha. There's no way for me to have it not taste like vinegar, and I don't prefer kombucha. Plus, I like water kefir because it has way more beneficial bacteria, way more. And then milk kefir is like the holy grail of beneficial bacteria. So we're gonna put some water over this tea. You know, some people do this and then they dump off the first bit of water right quick and then they do it again, like they call it like tea washing. Maybe when I have more time. What is stopping you? Little stick. Little stick is in my way. There we go. But yeah, today I I didn't get anything done yesterday outside. But to be fair, it was raining and gross all day outside, so I ended up doing lots of like water kefir, milk kefir, yogurt fermentation type things, just catching up. Today we're picking up some rabbits, and we got a kennel type. I like to do a colony versus have them be in like individual rabbit cages, and we're picking up some American chinchilla rabbits. Um, they're not actually a chinchilla in any way, shape, or form. They just started calling them that because their coats, like it was a way for women to have fur coats that look like a chinchilla coat, but was not. Right, but mainly like they're really good meat rabbits, and that they do have high quality pelts if you want to use their fur for things, which I definitely will. But now that we've gotten rid of the cows pretty much, I like to fill in gaps of protein. And now, while a rabbit will never equal the same amount of protein that you get from a cow, right, it is a nice little fast growing protein source, right? Um, so I don't need to know your personal info. Not being a bitch either. I think it's awesome you talk about it. You are real as it gets, and I learned so much from you. We seem to be in the same page. Yeah, I mean, it's not about knowing like people aren't up in here asking me for my social, right? Or like deep intricate stuff necessarily. It's more like I do these Q&As like about myself and stuff because it helps people like see me as human, right? Because if I'm only giving you my information, you only see me as an information source, right? Just subconsciously, you might not realize like I'm a human with human issues, and that I have bad days and good days. And now you might say, no, I know that because we're all human, but like social media trains us to not see influencers as that. So it really helps, plus I think it just helps people that like find my Instagram, I guess I should say my YouTube. Like it helps them like right off the bat realize I'm a human and I'm real, and that they don't have to have all the shit put together, you know um but yeah, so I feel like, I don't know, we're making good headway with things, even if some days it feels like we're not. I'm excited for that little cheese fridge to come. I Well, it's a wine fridge that I'm using as a cheese fridge, right? Um, but yeah, yeah, it's very I don't know, I don't know. It's very beautiful and stormy out today, and I'm just kind of all over the place in my head, I think, about about things. And but anyhow, but yeah, so if anybody wants to start saying question, if like you have a question about me that you've wanted to ask, feel free to do so. And then I will ramble on from there. But let's taste this tea, give people time. What is my biggest pet peeve? Um, I've got a couple. Ooh, that's so nice. Ooh, very smooth and earthy. I did not expect it to be earthy from a white peony. Usually it's more floral. I don't like when people leave fucking cupboards open. It bugs the shit out of me. Also, and if my husband's listening, so I hate when people say they're going to go chop wood because it's split wood. You're splitting it. You're not chopping it. You can chop a tree down, but then you split the wood. And people are like, I'm gonna go chop some wood. I'm like, it's split. You're gonna go split wood, and it's so trivial, but in my brain, I'm like, ah. Um, so, do I have any tea pets? I do. I have a fox tea pet that my husband got me for Christmas, but she's so big. I need like a better vessel to put her in. And a tea pet, for those who don't know, is you can either like pour off the first wash of your tea over her, or you can give it the last little dregs that you don't drink. And eventually, this clay creature turns like super like shiny oxidized color from the oils in the tea, and it's a really cool way. Some of them, when you dump it on there, it'll like squirt it in the air. Like there's all different types of tea pets that are really cool. Um, but I agree. I consistently close the cabinet doors at my mother-in-law's house, and they're always all open. It's fucking wild to me. It just bugs me so much. But yeah, I just don't like when people leave cupboards open. It's just, or, well, I mean, I guess it doesn't bother me that much, but I'm like, why did you put that back in the fridge? It's empty. There's like this much of a drink left in something. I'm like, throw it away, throw it away. Um, but but yeah, so that is a really nice tea. I'm really surprised by the depth of flavor in the white peony. I really am. I love to hear everything about you, so don't let it bother you. Oh, yeah. um, let's see. I hate when people empty the dishwasher on the counter. Like, just put it away. It's so close. I have white peonies blooming. They are not the same. So white peony is just what they call it, but this is actually like Camellia sinensis, a specific plant, and it's just what they call it. I want to believe that peony. I feel like peonies do have medicinal properties, but I feel like the reason I don't know a lot about them is because they're primarily toxic. Right, like I tend to like not take in a lot of information about plants that are overly toxic because they don't want a relationship with us. When you think about it, like if something is like poisonous, it's literally telling you stay away from me. I'm not trying to be your friend. And I think that might be the case about like the peony flower, but I could be wrong and I might just not know anything about it. Um, have you looked at rabbit protein? Is it awesome for shifting white abdos tissue to the brown adipose? Yeah, she's talking about like good fatty tissue, bad fatty tissue, right in your body. Yeah, I've seen people talk about that a little bit. I probably wouldn't be eating enough rabbit for that to matter. And I want to soak the rabbits in like whey or buttermilk. The thing I don't like about rabbits is how dry their flesh is, no matter what you do, because they don't have a lot of fat. We are going to be feeding a pretty high protein fat ratio, making sure that we work in black sunflower seeds and such. And that tends to help a little bit, but naturally they just don't develop a lot of fat in their flesh. But if you like marinate them before you cook them, right, because you can even cook them in a soup and it'll just, people try that and it just dries the meat out because there's no fat there. So I'm thinking like a really low and slow braise with lots of fat present to keep that meat from drying out. um, is white peony different from fuchsia peonies, and what parts do you collect from the plant? Yeah, like I said, it's not actually a peony. It's a Camellia sinensis plant. They just call it white peony. If you want to screenshot what it is, um, or you can even Google like white peony tea and learn about like the Camellia sinensis plant. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty excited about. We're only getting a breeding trio, like two females and a male, so it'll be a while before they. I want to go slow with it. Um, but yeah, I feel like I missed a bunch of stuff up here. Let's see. Raise rabbits. I assume your vegan is talking about how to cook rabbit troll. Yeah, for real. And it's so funny. I'm like, yeah. What's funny is people always assume that I'm a vegan and then they're shocked when I'm like, actually, it's really, really important that you like acknowledge that like your life is worth the death it takes to sustain you and there's no escaping the cycle, right? Something is dying to keep you alive. Um, but somebody said the peonies are very medicinal. I'm going to look at much closer. I just looked her up. She kills cancer cells from what I just read. Now, remember, when you're looking into something, just because it does say that it's medicinal and then it does something in your body, look up why. Like, is it a toxic effect? Is it just causing cell death in general? Is it, like, why? Why is something doing it? Because there's lots of plants that are highly medicinal that will also fuck you up. And people often forget that plants can be just as harmful as pharmaceutical medications because pharmaceutical medications are often derived originally from plants, right? That's why I think it's so funny whenever I get trolls from people that are like, oh, this chick thinks holistic. Well, I'm not really into holistic remedies actually, but when they're talking about herbalism in general, right? They're like, oh, this chick thinks plant works. I'm like, all right, well, let's go ahead and move all medications off the market that were derived from plants and see how you're doing, buddy. Right, and so it's so funny that people are like, oh, herbalism isn't real and it doesn't work, but let me go take this opioid that's made from a plant. Right. Let me go take this, whatever blood pressure lowering medication that's derived from a plant. Right. They synthesize it, but eventually you go back far enough, it came from a plant. you know. Um, but it's fucking funny. Um, do I do double extraction? Some people say you can get certain things through that, but I don't know how. It really depends on the plant, right? Like if you're doing mushrooms or something like usnea that's in like the fungus variety, you need to do a double extraction. But a lot of plants, like I was talking with somebody the other day about it, they were like, "Hey, it's pointless to do a California poppy this way. It takes too long. You can just put some grain alcohol over it, and like 48 hours your tincture's done." I'm like, "Okay, first of all, you will have not extracted any of your water soluble properties. And the alcohol is so strong that it actually can damage a lot of the properties, especially when we're working with delicate things like poppies, like petals, flower petals, roses, anything like that." And then he was like, "Well, just do a double extraction." And I'm like, "Yeah, but the heat destroys a lot of the properties, including the latex compounds that are in the poppy. So, like, it's not a mushroom." Right. So people are like, "Well, I want it done fast." I'm like, "Well, that's cool, but it won't be what you're wanting and you're more likely to cause like bad reactions." So I really only suggest a double extraction if you're working with something like mushrooms or fungus, because otherwise it's generally not needed unless it's like a very specific root that has like only water soluble properties. But even then, if you're using 100 proof vodka that's 50% water, 50% alcohol, you are already extracting the water soluble properties, right? Um, but yeah, somebody said, "I watched someone today talking about the bomb and using 95% alcohol to do a tincture." Yeah, but then there are people that will tell you even to put, there will people that will tell you to put alcohol on your plants before you extract them. And there's so much wrong with that. Oh my God. First of all, they're like, "Oh, it makes it more potent." First of all, whatever the alcohol is extracting is alcohol soluble properties, and it cannot go into the oil because oil and water don't go together. Those properties will never get infused into the oil. Second of all, you're now introducing water from the alcohol, even if it's just alcohol. Even if it's pure alcohol, it's water based, and they can't go together because water and alcohol don't go together, but they do cause a bacterial explosion. But they're like, "Oh, it turns so dark so fast." I'm like, "Congratulations, you extracted some chlorophyll." It's not any different. What it is more dangerous and like a waste of like product and like a waste, of alcohol, and it's like a waste of, and you have like a higher risk for your oil going rancid. um Questions, thoughts on propolis. I just started ghost pipe tincture today. There's all kinds of stuff here. I think propolis is not bad, right? I like most products and things that are made like, when I say products, I don't mean something for sale. Like, what is being made from the bee, right? Is it wax? Is it honey? Is it bee pollen? Is it propolis? Is it royal jelly? Is it bee bread? All that stuff definitely has a place. And, the propolis is pretty antimicrobial, antiviral, bacterial. It has all that type of stuff in it. But, uh, but yeah, so I think she's pretty good. She's a little hard to tincture though. She's one of those ones where if I was going to make a tincture, you would actually need to use Everclear because she's so hydrophobic that it takes like pure fucking grain alcohol to break her down. But people make the mistake of then just using it that way. So what you would want to do is like just put it in the bottom of your jar and put Everclear over top, or grain alcohol, whatever you want to call it, 95% alcohol, not proof, percent. Um, Let it sit for like a week, swirling it until it's basically just, you're left with nothing but solids of things that won't, right, that won't dissolve into it. And then you strain that out and then put that back in your jar, the infused alcohol, not the leftover stuff you strained out, and then pour vodka all the way to the top, because then you're basically diluting it, right? You could add distilled water, but I prefer to add the vodka because you're keeping it shelf stable. You're not having to do a ton of like ratio math where you have to weigh out your vodka or your grain alcohol and weigh out alcohol to equal proportions and put them together, because alcohol and water don't weigh the same. But I also feel like there's another step that some people do and that you can do. You can do that, let it solidify, and then leave the solids in and then put the vodka over top, and you might get some of the water, like baby little bits of the water soluble property, but mainly you just need to dissolve it and dilute it. So, question: what are you looking forward to in the garden this year? Anything you're preserving? I'm really looking forward just to eating warm tomatoes. Tomatoes. I miss good tomatoes. Tomatoes from the store are fucking trash. No flavor, arguably no like medicinal quality, like nutritional qualities, I should say. Um, but I'm looking forward to seeing how well my potatoes do. I need to get a root cellar situation settled out because even if I'm wrong, even if I only get half of what I'm expecting, I'm hopeful. I'm shooting for like 400 pounds of potatoes. Even if I only get shit, even if I only get 200 pounds of potatoes, I need someone to store them. And I live in a manufactured home, and they just don't have a place that works as a root cellar. Like, I don't have like a cool basement or a cool closet or anything like that. I mean, we have closets, but it's so well insulated that it doesn't stay cold, and there's a heat vent going into it, right? You know, so I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm really looking forward to things that I'm planting this year that won't really give me much until next year because they're perennials. And so I'm really excited about, well, I might get plenty this year. Like, I've got perennial kale, perennial collards, perennial cauliflower, perennial broccoli, and I'm excited about those like really taking hold. Not just for the food aspect of it, but because I don't have to replant them next year and they'll just be there. I think that's pretty neat. Question: what is your favorite tomato variety? Um, years ago, like 20, no, 10, at least 10, maybe 15 years ago, when they first came out with like the Cherokee purple tomato, right? Like, man, I just fell in love with how like sweet and tart she was. Like, she had like really classic tomato flavor, but like a zing at the end. Um, and I really like her. I really do. I also really love the Brad's Atomic cherry tomatoes. Not only are they just stunningly beautiful, it looks like somebody painted on them, but their flavor is just fantastic, and so I'm looking forward to those. I also like the roasty burn tomatoes, a good brandy wine, right? Like, those are all really good tomatoes, and I'm growing some new ones this year. A lot of Siberian and Japanese varieties because, as weird as it sounds, we do have similar climates, right? Where like suddenly it gets warm and then suddenly it gets cold, right? And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how those work out. And I almost never grow paste tomatoes, but we do make like sauce and stuff, which I know is sacrilegious, but I just feel like the sauces have more complex flavor than the paste tomatoes if I'm using, eating tomatoes and just like blistering off the skin. And I know you don't get as much, and there are lots of reasons like people don't like to do it, but I think they taste better, you know. Um, Somebody said sun gold cherries are amazing. Somebody said, yeah, I caught the live with you. Oh, you excited about gardening myself? My potatoes and onions are finally coming up. My potatoes are going crazy right now. They're probably about this tall in all the buckets, but I planted them really early. And I worked really hard on, like, I don't, like, here's a tip for potatoes in the future. When you eye your potatoes out next year, do it directly under a fluorescent light. I know people tell you to put it in like a dark, shady place, and they get these really long eyes and they break off real easy. If you, they call it chitting, chitting. If you eye out your potatoes or you chit out your potatoes, um, under a fluorescent, like your grow light where you're growing seedlings, right, before you put them out for spring. If you do it in the light, what happens is you get these really dense, really compact little eyes that haven't stretched, and they're like ready to grow. And then what I do is I scratch off all the eyes except for two, maybe three, right? Because if you have too many eyes in your potatoes, you won't get very big potatoes. You'll end up with all those itty bitty tiny ones, right? So I only want them to produce out of three eyes and really pay attention to the potatoes that they are growing. But they come up really fast when you make a really strong little eye on a potato like that. I mean, there were some that we had planted in the bottom of 10-gallon barrels. Pots, I should say, and within a week and a half, we already had the first potatoes popping up all the way through the top because they're just really strong. And then you have when you grow those really long eyes, it's taken a lot of energy from the potato itself, right? Because that potato is feeding the next generation, right? But anyhow, so I'm pretty excited about that. But somebody said a hailstorm destroyed our garden a little over a week ago. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, hail. If I would have put anything out right now, like I'm not planting anything out basically until the first week of June that is like sensitive to stuff like that. We've had some like collards get beat up and stuff, like, and kale but their leaves don't give a shit. I can just chop off the ones that got beat up and more just pop up. They're used to fake tattoo. That'd be a fucking intricate situation. Troll. Uh, but uh, but yeah, some of those greens can really survive a beating. Somebody said, question, what type of music do you like? I listen to a lot of like what I would say like street kid type country, like street kid type music. I like Casper Allen. I like the old stuff from Benjamin Todd. I'm not a fan of the new stuff he's putting out. I like older Coulter Wall. That's not really in the street kid realms. It just really depends on what I'm listening to, but like a lot of it is probably more country than people would expect from looking at me. But I did grow up in Northeast Oregon, and for a long time we had like the world's like third largest rodeo, and so but I like that type of stuff. But I also I don't know, kind of like bluegrassy things like that, and of course when I was a kid I listened to like all of like the 90s like grunge, like deep into like Rage Against the Machines and like Alice in Chains and all that kind of, Tool, Nine Inch Nails, all that kind of stuff, because I'm from the 90s, and I'm kind of glad I went that way because the other half of the 90s music fucking sucked, right? But do I like the Beatles? I hate the Beatles. Like I said, I went the other way in the 90s. No, I don't listen to that type of stuff. There was a time where I listened to a fair amount of like the Jerry Garcia band, which is different than the Grateful Dead, and kind of like just street kid traveling show type stuff, but I hate Fish, by the way. I do not mean the food Fish, I mean the band Fish. But yeah, most of the time I've got like this Pandora station that I've had for 10, maybe 15 years. I'm trying to think of like how long it's been. So the thing is like refined. It has refined itself. It almost never shows me new music now because I've listened to everything they have on there that's like that. But Kid Rock, just kidding. Now, there was a time, probably in my middle school years, where I used to have a friend and he was like obsessed with Kid Rock, and so we'd always ride around in his Camaro. So, unfortunately, I know more words from Kid Rock than I care to admit, but yeah, And we can all pretend like there aren't a few songs that we don't know every word to, but it was everywhere all the time, so you heard it all the time. Um, you did Fish for years, but don't care much for them. Yeah, I just, man, the thing about Fish is like they never. In my mind, I'm like, when are you gonna start the song? Because it sounds like it sounds like you've just been doing like a jam session to warm up your instruments and self, and then it just went for 3.5 hours. I swear to God, that's what it sounded like to me, you know. But yeah, it's very I just could never really get into it. But I also listen to a lot of like things like Aesop Rock, which is not rock at all. It's like I don't know. I have a weird fucking taste in music because I'm also like I like intricate like battle rap, but not like anything that you're probably thinking of when you think of rap, right? Completely different, like underground stuff. But a lot of that was because one of my exes, he grew up like deep in like the system in Chicago, like homeless kid status, and so he was super into that music, and we were together for a long time, so it kind of it just gets ingrained into you. But it's very it's just different. But yeah, somebody says I enjoy a variety of music and it all depends on my mood. Yeah, it definitely all depends on the mood. Like most of the time when I'm listening to somebody like Aesop Rock, I love how fast he can speak. It's like that's how fast my brain goes. And so if I put it on, it just like completely satiates me, and I have the capacity to just fucking clean or just do something or just move my body. But that's just how music impacts people. But and it's just very, but I also really like classical music. but especially if it's like piano orientated, I don't much care for like the full like orchestra, right? But like the level of emotion I can feel from like devastating classical music will like make me cry. And so sometimes if I'm like, all right, let's fall into the feelings, I'll just, and it's fucking sad, but like, I don't know. I feel for people who can't feel that type of stuff when they like listen to classical or music in general. But I have to be in like the right place for it. And I guess that place is like ready to feel the emotions, right? Um, Do you play music for your own plants? I don't really have indoor plants, and I don't actually like to listen to music or things when I'm outside because I want to hear what's going on outside. I want to hear all the wind sounds and the bird sounds, and like I imagine that's music to plants. Um, but let's see, what is my favorite color? I really like the like sage green, like earthy type colors like that, or even like a. This sounds weird because it's purple, but like more of a like I don't know. It's I almost want to say like a sage green purple, but it doesn't really exist. But it's more towards like the warm area of purple than the cold. I think that would be more towards like the red than the blue, right? My daughter's an artist and she's watching this. Maybe she knows what I'm saying, right? Like, but I like the warmer purples that are like, but they're also kind of pastel, right? Like I don't want like the bright royal purple, right? I like those. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the things that I like sometimes. My carpet is sage, and I love to put lavender with it. Right? Like I think green and purple can go together, and I also think pink and brown can often go together. And I remember one time years and years ago, like I think like I was pregnant with my daughter, and she's 17, so it would have been like 18 years ago. I remember I was going to this random therapist for a short amount of time, and he ended up being a creep and actually stalking me. It was a situation, but I remember I walked in with this like it was like this pink shirt that it looked like it was like fabric, but like somebody had like painted it all different hues of pink, and it had like little bits of brown stripes through it, and I thought it was really pretty. And I wore it with this skirt that I'd had since I was like homeless kid that I found in a thrift box, and I loved it. But it was like classic like cat shit brown with these little flowers all over it. And I loved that outfit together. And I remember he was like, and people can be whatever they want, and people don't always have to agree with you or whatever. Just like I don't agree that that shirt matches that skirt. We're being like fucking uncalled for, right? And so I thought it was really funny, but yeah, I think that oftentimes colors can go together that people don't expect. It's random information about color. Yeah, that guy was fucking creepy. I went there because I was like facing like a cancer diagnosis while I was pregnant with my daughter and like trying to figure out like what to do, right? Because um, he ended up like he was just like infatuated by me, and at that point in time I didn't know about my neurodiversity and what that can mean sometimes with people like being like, wow, how do you, it just gets creepy. And so I stopped seeing him because I could tell that he was a fucking creep, and plus he was like talking shit about the clothes I was wearing, and he was trying really hard. He was like, you need to like get rid of the baby and live your life, you have too much potential to be a mom again. I'm like, well, I already have a son. Right? And then I stopped seeing him. And I noticed once when I was sitting on the porch, super pregnant at my parents' house, he drove by, and I was like, huh. But I know who his kid is. Like, I grew up with this kid, so, like, I know where he lives, and it's nowhere near my parents. It's, like, solid 10 miles apart, right? And then it started happening more and more, and then I'd be in the grocery store, and he'd be behind me in line, and then I'd be, it was just like, like you think you're being followed, so you take a turn you wouldn't normally turn, and the person follows you, and you do it two more times, and they're still following you. You're like, what the fuck? That's basically what happened, to the point where he started parking outside of my parents' house, right? And so we ended up making a report about it, and then he went away. I don't know I didn't get a restraining order on him, right? Because he'd have to actually physically like do something to me, which is fucked up. But yeah, that went on for about 3 months before we got it to stop. Yeah, and I want to say he only retired from being a therapist like 4 or 5 years ago. That's fucking crazy, you know. I was like, my God, man. It was wild. Also, that fucking skirt and that shirt matched perfectly. You know? But yeah, so anyhow, I'm gonna get about my day. If you'd like to support my capacity to, you know, randomly drink tea with you, to half-ass do a Q&A about myself, to make fun of trolls, be a human, teach freely, all that kind of stuff, consider becoming a member. It's just a way to throw me a couple bucks a month for all the work I do. You can also call things home from the apothecary. I make all kinds of things, like my synergism capsules. I got my mouth mud. Oh, even for those who are already get the mouth mud, don't freak out, but there's a new pretty label. And I'm really, I spun it backwards. There's a new pretty label that I'm really excited about, that I worked really hard on. And so you might get a different looking mouth mud in the mail, but it's the same mud, new label. So you can call things home from my apothecary, including the mouth mud. And you can use the one-time code TEATIME, TEATIME, to save 10% on anything you call home. And like always, if you can't afford to do any of that, please don't feel bad about it. Another way that you can really support me, even if you can't afford to call things home or become a member, is to like, comment, turn on notifications, subscribe, share. Sharing is really important because that helps other people realize that they're smart enough to learn herbalism freely too, that they can be a real human. It gets my work out there, and it really, really goes a long way. So thank you so much for hanging out, folks, and I will see everybody tomorrow morning. Bye.